I sat on the front porch watching my kids play in the yard, realizing how much our lives had changed. 3 years ago, my wife Jessica decided our family was holding her back from becoming an internet sensation. She packed her bags, moved to California, and stunned me by voluntarily signing away all parental rights to our two beautiful children. I never imagined someone could walk away so easily from the family we built together. What I could never have predicted was that after finding stability and happiness again, she would return determined to destroy what she had willingly abandoned. If you are watching this right now, drop a comment letting me know where you are tuning in from. Hit that like button and subscribe to hear how I protected my family from the woman who once claimed to love us but became our worst nightmare. I still remember the exact moment I met Jessica. It was at a tech conference in Seattle back in 2015. I was 30 at the time, working as a software engineer for a growing tech company in Portland. She approached me after my presentation on user interface innovations, her smile lighting up the room as she asked thoughtful questions about my work. Jessica had this magnetic energy about her, with wavy auburn hair and bright green eyes that sparkled when she talked about technology. She instantly captivated me. We ended up talking through the entire networking event, and I remember feeling disappointed when it was time to leave. Just as I was about to ask for her number, she handed me her business card with her personal cell written on the back. That small act of confidence swept me off my feet. Our first date happened the following weekend. I drove 3 hours to Seattle just to take her to dinner. We shared plates of seafood pasta at a small Italian restaurant overlooking the water, talking until the staff started stacking chairs around us. What struck me most was how aligned our values seemed to be. Jessica talked about wanting a stable family life someday, having grown up with divorced parents who frequently used her as a pawn in their battles. She wanted to build something different, something lasting. Within 6 months, we were serious. I proposed at Mount Rainier during a weekend hiking trip, having carried the ring in my pocket the entire day, waiting for the perfect moment. When we reached the summit viewpoint, I got down on one knee. The joy in her eyes when she said yes remains one of my most precious memories, even now. Our wedding was small, but beautiful. We married at a vineyard in the Willamette Valley, surrounded by 60 of our closest friends and family. Jessica was radiant in her simple white dress, and I remember thinking I was the luckiest man alive. We moved into a craftsman house in a family-friendly neighborhood in Portland, excited to start our life together. Thomas came along just over a year later. I still recall the overwhelming emotion of holding my son for the first time, his tiny fingers gripping my thumb with surprising strength. Jessica was an attentive mother in those early days. She took 6 months off work to bond with him, and I would come home to find her singing lullabies or reading stories to our infant son, even though he was too young to understand. Lily was born 2 years after Thomas. By then, our family felt complete. Those first few years raising our children together were exhausting, but wonderful. Weekends were filled with trips to the park, messy pancake breakfasts, and building pillow forts in the living room. Jessica documented many of these moments on her personal Instagram account, mostly sharing with friends and family. The first hints of change were subtle. Around the time Lily turned, one Jessica became increasingly interested in social media platforms. What started as casual scrolling through Instagram evolved into hours studying influencers and their business models. I thought it was just a new interest, maybe even research for her marketing job. I actually encouraged her when she started her beauty blog. It seemed like a creative outlet, a way for her to express herself beyond being a mother and marketing executive. She would try new skincare routines and makeup techniques, posting tutorials and reviews. I even helped set up proper lighting in our spare room for her videos. The shift happened gradually. First, she started missing family dinners to film content, while the natural light was perfect. Then came the brand partnerships. Small at first, but she was elated when free products arrived at our door. I was proud of her growing, following, and ambition. We would celebrate each milestone 1,000 followers with takeout and wine after the kids went to bed. But over time, the balance tipped. Jessica began declining family outings because they did not fit her content calendar. She started referring to herself as a brand rather than a person. Our conversations increasingly revolved around engagement rates, sponsorship opportunities, and follower demographics. The first serious fracture occurred on Thomas' 8th birthday. We had planned a dinosaur-themed party at the Natural Science Museum, something he had been looking forward to for months. 2 days before, Jessica announced she had been invited to an exclusive influencer retreat in San Diego that same weekend. An opportunity too good to pass up, she claimed. The look on Thomas' face when I told him his mother would miss his birthday is seared into my memory. His little shoulders slumped, and he asked in the smallest voice, "Is it because I am not important enough?" I assured him that was not the case, but the seed of doubt had been planted in his young mind. When Jessica returned from the retreat, she was buzzing with excitement about the connections she had made. She barely asked about the party, flipping through the photos I showed her with distracted nods. Later that night, after the kids were asleep, I tried expressing how hurt Thomas had been. She became defensive, accusing me of not supporting her career growth. The argument ended with her sleeping in the guest room. Over the next few months, Jessica became increasingly distant from family life. She installed a professional lock on her content creation room, started taking more weekend trips for networking events, and spent dinners scrolling through her phone instead of engaging with the children. Thomas and Lily learned to ask me for help with homework and bedtime stories rather than interrupting their mother during filming sessions. One evening, I needed to use her laptop to finish a work project when my computer crashed. That is when I found the open tabs, flight searches to Los Angeles apartment viewings in Santa Monica, and emails to California-based talent agencies. My stomach dropped as I realized she was planning something monumental without discussing it with me. I waited until the kids were asleep before confronting her. I still believed we could work through whatever was happening. I thought perhaps she was considering a business trip or temporary project. I never expected what came next. Jessica sat across from me at our kitchen table, the same place where we had shared thousands of family meals, and calmly stated, "I cannot do this anymore, Elijah. This family life is suffocating me. I have outgrown Portland, outgrown this lifestyle. I want to move to California to pursue my career full-time." I asked about the children, about our marriage vows, about the life we had built together. Her response chilled me to the bone. "They would be better off without me pretending to be someone I am not. You are a good father. You can raise them." That night changed everything. In the weeks that followed, I begged her to consider counseling to think about the impact on Thomas and Lily. I suggested compromises like a temporary separation, where she could pursue her career goals while still remaining part of our family. She rejected every option, insisting a clean break was best for everyone. The divorce discussions were surreal. Jessica seemed more concerned about expediting the process than ensuring the children would be okay. When our lawyers discussed custody arrangements, she shocked everyone by volunteering to sign away her parental rights completely. Her lawyer pulled her aside, clearly trying to dissuade her from such a permanent decision. I overheard fragments. "Are you certain? This is very difficult to reverse." But Jessica was resolute. She wanted a fresh start, without legal ties or obligations. I struggled to comprehend how the woman who had once cradled our newborns with such tenderness could now sign documents, erasing her legal connection to them. Our mediator explained that with Jessica relinquishing parental rights, she would have no legal responsibilities including child support, but also no rights to visitation or decision-making. The hardest conversation of my life was explaining to Thomas and Lily that their mother was leaving. We sat them down in our living room one Sunday afternoon, Jessica already having packed most of her belongings. Thomas, at 8 years old, asked pointed questions. "Why do you not want to be our mom anymore? Did we do something wrong? Can we visit you in California?" Jessica answered with rehearsed lines about following dreams and how sometimes adults need to make difficult choices She assured them. She loved them. But I could see the disconnection in her eyes, as if she had already mentally departed. Lily, just 6, climbed into my lap and whispered, "Will you leave too, Daddy?" The question broke something in me, and I held her tightly, promising I would always be there. The day Jessica left was oddly anticlimactic. She had already moved most of her things to a storage unit. She hugged the children quickly in our foyer, telling them to be good for their father. There were no tears in her eyes as she wheeled her suitcase to the waiting Uber. Thomas stood stoically at the window, watching the car disappear down our street, while Lily colored quietly at the kitchen table, deliberately not looking up. The house felt both emptier and somehow less tense after she was gone. The legal proceedings moved quickly, given Jessica's willingness to concede everything. The judge, reviewing our case, seemed troubled by her eagerness to terminate parental rights, but ultimately approved our settlement. When Jessica confirmed multiple times, it was her informed decision. The final divorce and termination of parental rights were granted within 3 months. After the paperwork was signed and Jessica departed for California, the reality crashed down on me. I would cry in the shower, where the children could not hear me, wondering how I could possibly fill the roles of both parents. The practical challenges were immense, juggling work-school pickups, housekeeping, and the emotional needs of 2 traumatized children. Thomas began having nightmares and started acting out at school. His teacher called me in for a conference after he pushed another child, who mentioned having a fun weekend with his mom. Lily developed separation anxiety, panicking whenever I was out of her sight, convinced I too would disappear. I found a therapist specializing in family trauma, initially just for the children. After 2 sessions, the therapist gently suggested I needed support as well. Those weekly therapy sessions became a lifeline for all of us. Thomas learned to express his anger in healthier ways. Lily created art to process her feelings of abandonment. I began to understand that I could not help my children heal if I was not addressing my own pain. My support network proved invaluable during this time. My parents drove up from Eugene every other weekend to help with the children. My sister Amanda, who lived nearby, became a steady presence, often taking the kids for Saturday activities, so I could catch up on housework or simply have a moment to breathe. Friends from work organized meal trains and offered to babysit when I needed a mental health evening. 6 months after the divorce, I joined a single-parent support group at the recommendation of my therapist. That is where I met Catherine. She sat across from me, in the circle, quietly supportive of others sharing their stories. When her turn came, she spoke of losing her husband to cancer 2 years prior and raising their son alone while working as a kindergarten teacher. There was a gentle strength in her voice that resonated with me. After several group meetings, we started having coffee together after the sessions. Our conversations were refreshingly normal, focusing on everyday challenges rather than our respective tragedies. Catherine understood grief and loss in a way few others in my life could. She never rushed to offer solutions, just listened and validated my experiences. We took things incredibly slowly. For 3 months, we only saw each other at group meetings and occasional coffee afterward. When I finally asked if she would like to have dinner sometime, we agreed that our children should not be involved until we were certain about our relationship. Another 2 months passed before I introduced her to Thomas and Lily. We met at a neutral location, a children's science museum where the kids could have fun while interacting with Catherine in a low-pressure environment. I worried endlessly about their reaction, but Catherine approached them with genuine interest and patience, never forcing connections. Lily warmed to her first, gravitating toward Catherine's warm smile and gentle questions about her artwork. Thomas was more reserved, watching carefully from a distance, before slowly allowing short conversations about dinosaurs, his current obsession. Catherine never pushed, respecting his boundaries completely. Over the next year, we established new routines, as Catherine gradually became part of our lives. Sunday morning pancakes, Tuesday family board games, Thursday movie nights. The children began to heal, returning to their former selves with occasional difficult moments rather than constant distress. I watched Thomas laugh freely again, for the first time in over a year, when Catherine helped him build a volcano for his science project. After 18 months of dating, I proposed to Catherine during a weekend trip to the coast, the children excitedly participating in the plan. Thomas carried the ring in his pocket all day, solemnly guarding the secret, while Lily scattered seashells, leading to the spot where I would ask the question. When Catherine said yes, the children cheered louder than I did, wrapping their arms around both of us in a family hug that felt like the beginning of something beautiful. Our wedding was intimate and joyful, held in the backyard of our home with lanterns strung between trees and wildflowers in mason jars. Thomas stood proudly as my best man, taking his responsibility seriously, while Lily danced down the aisle, tossing flower petals with enthusiastic spins. During the ceremony, we included a family unity ritual, where all four of us poured different colored sand into a single container, symbolizing our lives blending together. Catherine moved into our home, bringing warmth and organization to spaces that had felt emptier after Jessica left. The transition was smoother than I expected, largely because Catherine had already been spending so much time with us. The children had designated spaces for their belongings at her previous apartment, and now helped her unpack and decide where her things should go in our shared home. Life settled into a comfortable rhythm. Catherine adapted her teaching schedule to accommodate the children's activities. I adjusted my work hours to be home early 3 days a week. We found balance and joy in our daily routines, celebrating small victories and supporting each other through challenges. The first sign that something had changed came about 3 months after our wedding. I received a notification that Jessica had liked several old family photos on my rarely used social media account, photos from years before she left. I thought little of it at first, assuming she was feeling nostalgic. I mentioned it casually to Catherine, who suggested I check my privacy settings, but did not seem concerned. Around this same time, Catherine and I began discussing adoption. The children had started calling her mom shortly after our wedding, a development that happened naturally, without prompting. The legal adoption would formalize what had already become reality in our hearts and daily lives. We consulted with a family attorney who explained the process would be straightforward given Jessica had terminated her parental rights. 2 weeks into the adoption process, I received an email from Jessica. The subject line read simply, "I made a mistake." The message itself was emotional, explaining how she had realized what she had given up, how her California dreams had not fulfilled her as expected, and how she missed the children desperately. She asked if we could discuss reestablishing contact. After careful consideration and consultation with our family therapist, I composed a firm but not unkind response. I explained that the children had experienced significant trauma from her departure and had only recently found stability. I told her that Thomas and Lily were thriving with consistency and that Catherine was in the process of legally adopting them. I made it clear that reintroducing her into their lives would not be in their best interest at this time. Her response was immediate and alarming. The tone shifted from regretful to accusatory. She claimed I was punishing her for following her dreams, that I had turned the children against her, that I had no right to keep a mother from her children. I did not respond, hoping the situation would de-escalate. Instead, it escalated dramatically. A week later, Thomas came home from school, confused, saying a lady who said she was his real mom had tried to talk to him on the playground. The school confirmed a woman matching Jessica's description had been asked to leave school grounds when she could not provide authorization to interact with Thomas. Catherine found a large package on our porch the following day, filled with expensive toys and a note to the children about how much their mother missed them. We decided not to give the gifts to Thomas and Lily, storing them in the attic instead. That evening, we called our attorney to discuss our options, concerned about Jessica's increasingly erratic behavior. Things took a darker turn when Catherine texted me one afternoon, saying someone was following her after work. She had noticed the same car behind her for several days, and had become suspicious. When she took an intentional wrong turn, the vehicle followed. She drove to a public place and waited inside until I could arrive. Though we could not confirm, it was Jessica. The timing seemed too coincidental. The confirmation came days later, when Catherine found Jessica waiting by her car in the school parking lot after work. Jessica confronted her, calling her a home wrecker and claiming, "You stole my family. You have no right to call yourself their mother." Catherine maintained her composure, simply getting in her car and leaving, but she was visibly shaken when she arrived home. We filed a police report that evening documenting the harassment and expressing concern about the children's safety. The officer took detailed notes, but explained that without threats of physical harm, their options were limited. They recommended documenting every incident and considering a restraining order if the behavior continued. The situation worsened when Jessica created social media accounts dedicated to sharing her side of the story. She posted old family photos with captions claiming I had manipulated the courts and poisoned the children against her. She reached out to mutual friends, spreading misinformation about the circumstances of our divorce. Several well-meaning acquaintances contacted me concerned about the accusations they were seeing online. Catherine began receiving anonymous packages with disturbing contents notes, with cut-out magazine letters saying, "You are not their mother," photographs of her taken from a distance, without her knowledge, and even a child's doll with its head removed. Each incident was reported to the police and added to our growing file. We installed security cameras around the house, capturing footage of Jessica driving slowly past our home on multiple occasions, sometimes parking down the street and watching the house for hours. The children became aware something was wrong. When we implemented new safety rules, they were not allowed to play in the front yard. Unsupervised, they needed to use a buddy system at school, and they had to check in more frequently when away from home. Thomas started asking questions, remembering the woman from the school playground. During a particularly difficult bedtime conversation, he asked, "Is Mom afraid of my real mom? Is that why we have cameras now?" I struggled to explain the situation in age-appropriate terms, assuring him that Catherine was his mom in all the procents, ways that mattered, and that the security measures were just to keep everyone safe. The breaking point came during a family dinner at a local restaurant. We were celebrating Lily's dance recital when Jessica appeared at our table clearly intoxicated. She began shouting about how I had stolen her children and how Catherine could never replace her. The restaurant manager intervened, quickly escorting Jessica out, while we hurried the frightened children to our car through a side exit. The next morning, we filed for a restraining order, compiling all the evidence we had gathered over the previous weeks. The school incident report, police reports, security camera, footage, photographs of the disturbing packages and statements from witnesses at the restaurant. The hearing was scheduled for the following week. Jessica appeared in court with her own attorney, who presented a dramatically different narrative. She claimed she had been coerced into signing away her rights during a vulnerable period, and that she only wanted reasonable access to her biological children. Her attorney argued that her behavior, while perhaps overzealous, was that of a desperate mother trying to reconnect with her children. Our attorney methodically presented the timeline of events, beginning with Jessica's voluntary termination of rights and emphasizing the 2-year gap before she showed any interest in the children. The security footage of her watching our house and testimony from Catherine's school principal about the unauthorized attempt to contact Thomas proved particularly compelling. The judge granted the restraining order prohibiting Jessica from coming within 500 feet of our home, the children's school, Catherine's workplace, or any of us individually. Additionally, she was banned from contacting us through any medium, including social media, email, or third parties. The judge sternly warned her that violations would result in criminal charges. As we left the courthouse, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. For the first time in months, I believed we might be able to move forward without constantly looking over our shoulders. Catherine squeezed my hand as we walked to the car, both of us hopeful this would be the end of the ordeal. The 6 months following the restraining order brought a peace we had almost forgotten was possible. Jessica appeared to have accepted the court's decision, with no further incidents reported. We remained vigilant, but gradually relaxed some of our security measures, allowing the children to resume normal activities without constant supervision. During this period, we finalized Catherine's adoption of Thomas and Lily. The day we received the official documents was emotional for all of us. Catherine prepared a special dinner, and we presented the children with gifts, symbolizing our permanent family bond, personalized storybooks, detailing our journey together, and necklaces with 4 interlocking rings, representing each family member. Thomas, now 10, understood the significance more clearly than his sister. When Catherine knelt to place the necklace around his neck, he threw his arms around her and whispered, "Thanks for choosing to be my mom." I caught the moment on camera, the pure love in their embrace, capturing everything we had fought to protect. Just when we thought the chapter with Jessica had closed permanently, a thick envelope arrived in the mail bearing her return address. My first instinct was to throw it away, unopened, but something made me pause. I waited until the children were at school, then opened it with Catherine at my side, ready to document any concerning content. Inside was a 12-page handwritten letter different in tone from anything Jessica had sent previously. Gone were the accusations and demands, replaced with what appeared to be genuine reflection. She acknowledged the pain she had caused, took responsibility for abandoning the children, and expressed regret for her recent behavior. She explained she had begun therapy and recognized her actions had been driven by guilt rather than genuine concern for the children's well-being. Most surprisingly, she stated she would respect our restraining order and our family boundaries going forward. She asked only that when the children were older, and if they expressed interest, we might consider allowing supervised contact. She closed by saying she understood if I never replied and would not reach out again without legal permission. Catherine and I discussed the letter extensively with our family therapist. We agreed the change in tone seemed sincere but remained cautious given the pattern of escalation we had experienced. The therapist suggested this might provide an opportunity for me to gain personal closure, even if reconciliation was not appropriate for the children at this stage. After careful consideration, I decided to meet with Jessica once with my attorney present at a neutral location. Catherine supported my decision while choosing not to attend herself, feeling her presence might complicate matters. We arranged to meet at my attorney's office during a time the children would be at school. Seeing Jessica, after everything that had happened, was strange. She looked simultaneously familiar and like a stranger. The confident, ambitious woman I had married was there in her features, but her demeanor was subdued, her famous energy dampened. She thanked me for agreeing to meet, maintaining appropriate formality, rather than attempting emotional manipulation. Our conversation lasted approximately 1 hour. I allowed her to speak first, listening, as she expanded on the reflections in her letter. She explained how her therapist had helped her recognize patterns of narcissism and impulsive decision-making. She acknowledged that her desire to return to the children's lives had been more about alleviating her own guilt than their well-being. When it was my turn to speak, I was surprised by my own calmness. I explained how her abandonment had affected Thomas and Lily, the nightmares and anxiety they had experienced, and the long journey to healing they had undertaken. I described how Catherine had earned their trust through consistent presence and genuine love, never trying to replace Jessica, but simply being the mother they needed. I made it absolutely clear that while I appreciated her newfound insight, our priority remained the children's stability and emotional security. I told her that forced reintroduction would only re-traumatize them, and that any potential future contact would need to be initiated by Thomas and Lily when they were old enough to make informed decisions. Jessica nodded throughout my explanation, not interrupting or becoming defensive. When I finished, she simply said, "I understand. They deserve better than what I gave them. Catherine is their mother now, and I can see you are both doing a wonderful job. As our meeting concluded, she handed me a sealed envelope. It contained 2 letters, one for each child to be given to them, when and if I deemed appropriate, potentially years in the future. She made it clear there was no pressure to ever deliver them. My attorney reviewed the contents, confirming they contained only appropriate expressions of regret and well wishes, with no manipulative language or promises. I returned home, feeling a sense of resolution I had not expected. Catherine was waiting, concerned about how the meeting had affected me. As I recounted the conversation, I realized I no longer harbored the anger that had been my companion for so long. In its place was not forgiveness exactly, but a form of acceptance that allowed me to fully release the past. We continued family therapy to process this latest development, though we did not immediately share details of the meeting with the children. Our therapist helped us develop age-appropriate ways to address questions about Jessica when they arose, emphasizing that families come in many forms, and that Catherine's role as their mother was permanent and secure. As months passed, our family life strengthened. Thomas excelled in science competitions and developed a passion for soccer. Lily discovered a talent for storytelling and performed in her first school play. Catherine thrived in her dual roles as mother and teacher, eventually being recognized as Teacher of the Year at her school. I found unexpected fulfillment in leading a support group for blended families, sharing our hard-won wisdom with others navigating similar challenges. The most profound lesson from our ordeal was that parenthood has little to do with biology and everything to do with daily choice. Being a parent means choosing your children's well-being over your own desires, showing up consistently even when it is difficult, and creating safety in an unpredictable world. Jessica gave birth to Thomas and Lily, but Catherine became their mother, through thousands of conscious choices, to love them unconditionally. I also learned that resilience is not about avoiding hardship, but about finding your way through it. Our family emerged stronger because we faced our challenges together, holding space for difficult emotions, while continuing to build joy in our daily lives. Thomas and Lily grew from frightened, insecure children into confident, compassionate individuals with a secure understanding of their own worth, regardless of their biological mother's choices. Today, our home is filled with laughter, occasional arguments about homework or screen time, family, movie nights, and the ordinary magic of everyday life. The security cameras remain, but we check them less frequently. The restraining order is still in place, but it no longer dominates our thoughts. We have reclaimed our narrative, refusing to be defined by abandonment, and instead celebrating the family we chose to become. True love, I have learned, is never about possession or control. It is about putting someone else's needs above your own, about choosing them day after day, especially when it is difficult. It is about creating a home where everyone feels safe to be exactly who they are. By that measure, our family could not be more genuine or complete. Have you ever had to rebuild your life after a major betrayal? How did you protect your children while helping them heal? Share your experiences in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear that healing is possible even after the deepest wounds. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember that the family you choose can be more powerful than the family you were born into.